In 2018, Nigeria branded its out-of-school children's figure 13.5 million in the sponsored National Personal Audit of the Universal Basic Education Commission, while foreign development partners put the growth of out-of-school children at 18.5 million in 2022. 2 years after, as at October 2022, the United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization UNESCO says Nigeria now houses 20 million children that are out of school. This figure represents 1 in 12 of all out-of-school children globally and 22% of all children in the age group that are resident in Nigeria. These out-of-school children, according to the Universal Basic Education Commission (UBEC), includes girl child in northern Nigeria, boy child dropout in the south-south and southeast regions, internally displaced children, and Almajiri, Quranic, and itinerant children who are predominantly found in northern part of the country. Experts say the reasons behind increasing numbers of out-of-school children is not far from the indices of poverty, accessibility, among others. The Federal Capital Territory in the north-central of Nigeria and a connecting city, sitting on the confluence of Benue and Niger rivers, records well over 1,000 public and private schools with their peculiarities for access to basic school education. The Federal Capital Territory Education Board recently identified the peculiarities to classroom congestion, poor funding and shortage of specialized teachers as one of the key challenges facing the public schools in the nation's capital. These inadequacies have exposed the needs of the schools and its inevitability to dire urgent intervention from the school's immediate community, resident associations and support from other groups. Immediate communities and schools are the School-Based Management Committee and the Parent Teachers Association. This group are made up of parents, teachers, and other school staff who foster a relationship to facilitate parental participation in the school. School authorities and the government have now, over the years, considered the Parent Teachers Association as one of those useful external sources who meet annually or quarterly to discuss matters on the educational, moral, and spirited well-being of the students or pupils of any learning organization. Education specialists have considered over time if the Parent-Teacher Association have constitutional roles to play in schools.
It's a voluntary organization, and so there are basically no constitutional rules. The only thing where maybe we'll look at constitutional rules from the purpose for which it was established. So you also have to understand that there are also schools that don't have anything called PTA. The idea of the PTA was a way of, just like you have relationship, teacher-student relationship, it was also a way to foster parents-teacher relationship. So the parents already have a relationship with their children, with their words, but the parents do not know these teachers. So it was important to create this, or it's important to create this platform where parents can interact with teachers and of course school management and get first-hand information as regarding development happenings in the school and the initiative the school is taking in fostering education and fostering teaching and learning.
The society have come to believe that Parent Teachers Association (PTA) plays a major role in the development of a school through provision of moral and financial supports. Specifically, this involved donation for funding the association's projects that could assist the school, such as provision of books and other basic materials, school events, or use in the school library. Country representative of NASA Youth Movement Nigeria and an education specialist, Chioma Tamano, speaks on this.
Some of these associations are usually created in a bid to help, push up, support, or give credence to what it is that they were originally, coined out for, to do, to achieve. And so I'm sure that when it was coined, they had a vision, they had a mission, they had their particular problem areas. When you say Parent Teachers Association, most schools have it. Most schools have it. Most private schools also have it. This is well embedded in our public schools. But for the little time I spent in education, I just saw that these people have meetings. They just come together for meetings, and they come together to talk about issues around the school. And if they have to make one contribution, they meet.
A school head in the Federal Capital Territory, Tanko Alalana, shares his experience on the involvement of PTA and the running of the school and its effects on the pupils and their parents.
So the PTA, it's not a new thing. They have their responsibility, considering the mercy where the environment of the school where their children are receiving education. So certainly, there is a provision for a PTA to come into it, and also school management. I also want to believe that it is going to become a responsibility for PTA and school-based management committee. From experience again, an authority will ask me as a head of a school that, why am I complaining? Don't I have PTA? Don't I have school-based management committee? Then it goes back to say that you, the head, is inexperienced. The head teacher, the principal, is not cooperating with the community. So they will cast the blame on you. So therefore, school heads will now begin to mount pressure on PTA and school-based management committee. If you are in the township school, good for you. Because there's these parents that are actually understanding, and they have that helping capacity that they could help. Unfortunately, if you are in the rural area, then sorry, you can only lament, because the parents themselves would wish you to give them, rather for them to contribute. Where it happens, then the story is not good for you to see. There is serious pressure on PTA and school-based management committee in schools today. It is even enshrined in the documents they give you to run a school. And you must do it that way. They question you as a head, whether you have PTA and what are you doing about it. Whether you have a school-based management committee and what are you doing about it. And all these bodies, whatever thing you are going to do, you must levy them to pay. So when you levy them, they cannot even pay the school fees you are asking for, the official thing for their children. Not to talk of the PTA thing. As many who can do, they do. But certainly there is pressure on PTA, and they are not finding it funny.
The assumed roles of the PTA Association in salvaging instances of insufficient items for teaching and learning in the public school in the FCT requires extra charges on parent and guardians of these pupils and students in the public schools. This education analyst, Tuni TAC, speak on the burden of PTA extra charges and the UBEC Acts of the Federal Government of Nigeria, which state that basic education is free in Nigeria.
So consider a family with 6 children in school, and the overall monthly allowance of the parents isn't up to the minimum wage. Such a family might also naively understand that basic education is free. And if it is not entirely free, why can't it stop at the point of purchasing school uniforms, sandals, and books? Remember that they also have a subject called arts and crafts, which is sometimes monetized, and failure to pay has dire consequences. So the government slogan that education is free turns out to be a scam. Nobody loves being scammed. Nobody loves deception. Nobody likes exploitation. The economy is biting hard enough, and no parent wants to be unduly stressed.
An Abuja-based moderator of the Coalition of Civil Societies on Education in the Federal Capital Territory, Abdullahi Saleh, says free education remains a mirage to the children of poor in the FCT and Nigeria as whole due to the demand of the PTA.
I think PTA has constituted a nuisance to the achievement of this free education. PTA is one of our biggest. Now, if you read the UB Act, everything, including uniform and books, should be made available by government. That is the only way you can reduce these out-of-school children. Because I tell you what, go outside Abuja. Honestly speaking, you meet families that do not earn anything for a living, except when they sell something from their farms. And you know what is happening today. You cannot force these parents to bring 500 naira before they collect their children's results. You can't force these parents to give some money for development or whatever.
Consequently, alternative funding engaged by the Parent Teachers Association, such as financial channels, are serving as instrument for meeting the demands of the teachers, the learners, and the entire school system that have emerged outside of the traditional finance system.
You can go and source the funds anywhere, but you don't impose that on parents, especially parents that are not they're not well-to-do to afford such funds. These are things that we need to revisit, actually. And unless you get a government that is serious, a government that is listening, all these issues you just keep rigmarole rolling because government doesn't give a damn. All they're looking out for is to make money for themselves.
In view of this, public schools in the country faces two challenges of opportunist costs: exorbitant and incessant levies by the Parent Teacher Association (PTA). Several moves indicating support for the side of the government has created more rumbles within the system, with the parent recounting their pains. They say this discouraged parent from keeping their children in schools. Education analyst Kuni TC shares her view.
If they can't keep up and the demands keep coming, which in the first place they feel should be the government's responsibility, the only remedy will be to ask the children to pull out of school. They might even justify their actions and slogans with proverbs and thereby convince the children that education is not the ultimate. So the PTA needs to have a human face. What should be the responsibility of the government should not be shifted to the parents. There's so much stress already on the average Nigerian parents. So yes, I believe that the demands from PTA can lead to more out-of-school children.
Country representative of NASA Youth Movement Nigeria, Chioma Tamano, says levies imposed by the Parent Teachers Association undermines children's rights to education and further abating the out-of-school children phenomenon in Nigeria, and specifically increasing street children in the Federal Capital Territory.
Institutionalized PTA can lead to out-of-school children.
Parent Teachers Association, PTA, over time, their impact, if you ask me, has not been really felt. The association themselves are not even strong. The Parents Teachers Association that we have in the FCT is not strong enough. Their voice, has not been heard enough in the area of helping to even solve the lingering problem of out-of-school children that we have had over the years. We haven't felt their impact.
Abuja residents respond to issues of PTA levies and their concerns about the pressure of PTA demands keeping children out of schools in the FCT.
PTA in itself is not supposed to even contribute anything. They are supposed to act as advisory to schools, not contributing financial state of that institution. Because really, the local government ought to have been funding the educational sector without any other assistance. When PTA comes in, they are coming in as support, but not to take over the responsibility of providing chairs, providing chalk, providing blackboard. No.
Yes, I totally agree that PTA imposed levies most times contribute to out-of-school children population in the country, especially FCT, because I have personally witnessed a scenario like that when my mechanic, who was busy fixing my car in my neighborhood, particularly precisely Jikwe in the FCT, That early morning, my car developed a fault, and I took the car to him. As he was there fixing the car, his child of about 7 years old walked up to him and said, Daddy, we asked to pay our PTA levy. We have to bring our PTA levies to school, that if we don't bring it, they will be sent home. And I looked at the child, and I looked at the father. I was also eagerly waiting to hear the response of the father. And the father said, okay, the boy should go to school, that he will see what he can do, that by at the end of the day, whatever he can gather, he'll be able to make up for the PTA levies. And I looked at him, I said, wow, a peasant mechanic trying to eke out a living for himself and his family, and he will still have to consider PTA levies, irrespective of the fact that he may or may not have paid other unofficial fees. Some of these families fall under the IDPs that usually find their way to Abuja from neighboring states like Nasarawa, Niger, and others, who have been displaced as a result of terrorism. And this kind of people can afford to stay out of school for as long as possible until they find a very suitable situation, or maybe when they return back to their uh, original places where they came from. So this, for me, these things are bad for the system, and it's one way or the other contributing to out of school children in Nigeria, the SPT in particular. You see most of these children running around during school hours, and you begin to wonder, why are these children in school? You will know that maybe because of one levy or the other, which most of these institutions collect through the back door, because definitely government will tell you that, oh, we are not collecting any levy, we didn't ask any child to stay out of school from levies. But the teachers and the managers of the school where these children, we have to go and report on a daily basis. We have to comply, because if you don't comply, they have the authority, they have the power to tell you not to come to school.
You know, some of them, they want an avenue of getting their own money. Sometimes they put levy that will not get to the government. You understand? Sometimes, or pay this or pay that without this, and all these things are not remitted to government. You understand? There is some they will give you, go and pay in this account. They, like, especially in secondary school, like we that have children, you will go, they will bring some, this one goes here, this one goes here, this one goes here. And some of those things, especially in all these FTC schools, some of them, it may be few that enter government force.
It is okay, because in other countries that there's nothing like corruption, their schools are well equipped. Yeah, but in Nigeria, because of the corruption we have in the system, so that's why most public schools are not equipped at all. PTA, that's Parents Teachers Association, no, it does, because the PTA should not be the one responsible for the facilities of the school. It should be the government. Yeah, it does.
I believe that there was a reason why the government came up with the policy on free basic education, free and compulsory basic education. One of the consideration was the fact that Nigerians, especially in rural areas, are hit by economic hardship, and not just then, but also now. And you'll be able to witness that things have become worse in terms of the economy of the country. So people are battling to meet basic needs such as feeding and healthcare. And PTA or school levies or whatever subheadings they may come under are considered by them as unnecessary burden on them. So most parents will want to shake that off and rather allow their children to be home, because they cannot afford it. It will interest you to know that there are parents who cannot afford to pay the PTA levies. So they also question the sincerity of government and its policy. If free education is indeed free, then why charge PTA levies? Why charge PTA levies? It is my opinion that the government has to look into this. Of course, there have been explanations that nobody is forced to pay levies, but once the school agrees that such and such amount of money should be paid as levies, parents are forced to pay. And when children do not pay such levies, they are beaten and sent out of school because of PTA levies. So I believe that this is keeping many children out of school.
Abdullahi Saleh attribute the incessant levies of PTA on children's education and the FCT on failure of the Universal Basic Education Act of the federal government. He says the act must be amended if Nigeria will succeed in reducing the increasing figure out of school children.
And they told me that if PTA says they want to contribute, why would they stop them? I said, but then why are you imposing it on those that cannot afford it? It's been a fight between that I've been fighting. And I wouldn't stop that fight because I feel it's all right. I've read the UBE Act, I've digested it. Government is supposed to provide virtually everything for a child to be able to go through primary education 1 to 9.
Joshua Orongunyo, however, called on the Nigerian government to sit up to its responsibilities to deliberately address the issue of out-of-school children by ensuring adequate provision and facilities in the school and not surrendering its responsibilities to the Parent Teachers Association.
But we are beginning to see that because parents are really interested in the education of their children, these kind of structures set up are coming up, are springing up, buses, classrooms, facilities. And this is not supposed to be the case, because we don't want a case where a parent is afraid of sending his child to the school because he's seeing a lot of things that is donated by the Parents Teachers Association. Government needs to also sit up, wake up to its responsibility and ensure that the schools are well equipped and furnished and conducive to learning.